have joined us to this REC meeting number 351, held today, the 19th of June. On that note, then I will request that we then proceed to our first item in the open session of our meeting, which is the approval of the 2023-24 financial year municipal tariff applications. Mr. Mavuso, if you can briefly introduce the submission, please.
Yes.
I don't know whether it's me, Mr. Mavuso. Apologies, we can't hear you. Your connection is not very clear. Is it me only, members, or can you hear Mr. Mavuso?
Chairperson, can I quickly assist? I think he might have a problem.
Yes, you may proceed with this shortly.
Okay, thanks, Chairperson. We are presenting today 33 municipal tariff applications from all over the country, and we'll be presenting them by province. We will be starting with the Gauteng province. But Chairperson, I just want to say something before maybe the colleagues start with their presentations. Last week we had the REC meeting and there were guidances that were given. Unfortunately, these tariffs had already been in the process. So there might still be issues that were highlighted last week that are still in these tariff applications. So please bear with us, members of staff, as they present. They will highlight those proposed guidances that you guys gave to us, and then we'll make the changes as appropriate. The guideline for this year, Chairperson, is 15.1, and the issue that maybe members must be aware of, as guided by Mr. Mkhize last week, to just for us to highlight the salient issues. I think the one thing that will come up is the issue of the night safe tariff. Chairperson, as you know, the night safe tariff is still on. We did present the RTP, whereby part of that was the rationalization of tariffs. However, that was not approved to us ESCOM to do some work further than what they had done. So they will still have issues around the night safe. And then the other issue, Chairperson, is the one ongoing, is the system losses. We still have municipalities that have got high system losses. And as usual, we do ask municipalities to give us a report on how they plan to reduce the system losses, and then we monitor that. Some were from previous years. We do have reports and we're monitoring them. And others are just from this year. So as members of the colleagues are presenting, they will highlight that. And then the other one, Chairperson, is on repairs and maintenance. We've noted with concern, Chairperson, that municipalities are not doing sufficient repairs and maintenance, or sometimes they budget for it, but they do not actually undertake the repairs and maintenance. But for those that have been identified, we will highlight them. With regard to performance indicators, we've got the electricity price margin. The benchmark is 60%, and then the range is 58 to 62. And the bulk purchase cost to total expenditure percentage is 75, the benchmark, and the acceptable range is 58 to 78. Energy losses 10% benchmark, but acceptable range is 5 to 12. Revenue collection is 95, and it has no range, so it must be 95 or above. Repairs and maintenance 6%, but allowable range is 6 to 15. But obviously, Chairperson, on this one, there may be those that may be undertaking abnormal maintenance or even upgrading of their systems. So they may be exceeding that 6 to 15 range. But for those, we'll ask them to present us with a plan, which will then obviously monitor. They need to give us 6 monthly reports on those kind of spending on repairs and maintenance. And the last one is the surplus margin is 15%, acceptable range 10 to 20%. Chairperson, with that, I will give over to Maria. The benchmarks are already in this particular submission cover. If members want to look at them, but I will now give to Maria and the team. We'll start with the Gauteng province. Maria, over to you, ma'am. Sorry.
Thanks, Dr. Stratler, but I see Zingisa's hand is up. Let's hope he is connected well. Mr. Mavuso?
Thank you, CEO. Can you hear me, CEO?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, I've connected with my phone. CEO, I wanted to just correct something like on the submission itself at 5.3. We're talking about there with say the minister letter referenced granting an extension. It's actually requesting an extension. So we'd like to correct that. And also I would like Maria, when she comes in, just to correct something in terms of the number of municipalities and reference that with the annexure, whether we're talking about the same numbers on both in the submission and also in the annexure. Thanks, CEO.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mavuso. Ms. Matlaku, over to you. We'll be starting with the Gauteng province. Do you have anything to add? Otherwise, I'll ask Dr. K to just proceed with the first application within the Gauteng province. Dr. K?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, and good morning, management and colleagues. So the type application is from Mfuleni municipality in Gauteng. They are applying for an increase of 15.10. The biggest issue, Chair, with this municipality is the energy losses, which are above the benchmark range. They are currently sitting at 23.5%. So in terms of the tariffs, there are two tariffs that are sitting outside of the benchmark range, which based on the guidance that we were given last time, I'll bring them. So it's bring them into the upper band of the range. So it's the FBE law on page 6 of 417, the first block there, as well as the domestic single-phase, three-phase flats and townhouses, the first block there on page 10 of 117. So in terms of the recommendation, we do recommend the approval of the tariffs for implementation from the 1st of July 2023. The recommendation is on starts on page 34 of 417. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much. Members, are there any questions or issues of clarity?
I've got none on my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I don't see any other hands. We'll then move on to the...
Chairperson, just
Yes.
sorry that I take it that the issues that you have raised in the previous setting when we're looking at these applications, they still hold. And therefore, hence, no question on my side, but for them to note all those matters that were raised so that they can, in the follow-up, do the same here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mkhize. Colleagues, I've seen Mr. Stratler's thumbs up. Thumb is up indicating that, yes, those issues that were raised at the ELS, or rather at the meeting of the REC on the 14th of June, still holds in terms of what needs to be taken into account by the team. And I think in terms of Mr. Sichotlo's introduction, they will highlight those issues as to how they have been covered in the application as we progress, because he has indicated that some of them were already finalized at the time of the meeting of the 14th. We'll then go to recommendations on page 34, and on page 34 of 117, and the recommendation are that the tariff application from Emfuleni local municipality be approved as recommended, and that the municipality must continue to monitor energy losses in line with the set plan and submit to NESA quarterly progress reports commencing this September of 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendation provided? Thank you, Mr. Mkize. I do support. Thank you, Mr. Gumete. We'll then proceed to the next application, which is from the West Rand Power Distributor. And Ms. Sekwadi, over to you.
Thank you. West Rand is a private distributor, and it's applying for an average increase of 15.10%. The distributor is doing well, except for the surplus that's that operated at a deficit. The deficit is caused because it's because of the Eskom. This distributor has the dispute between Eskom and them since 2018, and is still ongoing on the issue that Eskom undercharged them for the previous years. So they say there's some year that in 2018 they charged them 26 million. 26 million for that year, saying that they have undercharged them on the previous years. So, and the dispute is still ongoing. And then the other issue that's causing the deficit is on the issue that there are some customers that falls under Mogale City, and they are supplied electricity by West Rand, but they pay other services or other taxes to Mogale City, but the electricity service falls under West Rand distributor, so it's costing the distributor. The distributor has two tariffs, domestic and commercial, and they are increasing by the guideline, and they're all within the benchmark, so they are recommend for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any issues, any comments in relation to this tariff application? I don't see any hand. May I then request members that we go to the recommendations, which are on P41. The recommendation are that the REC approves the tariffs as presented, with the implementation thereof being on the 1st of July 2023, and also for the team to note the other inputs that were made by the members at the previous meeting. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the approval of this tariff?
You are on mute, Chairperson.
Apologies. Thank you, members. Thank you, Mr. Mkize, Mr. Gumete. I also support the application of West Rand Distributors tariffs application. Thank you. May we then move on to the KZN province? We'll start with Emma Lengeni. Mr. Khare, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues. Emma Lengeni municipality is applying guideline increase on all their tariffs. Eskom is providing 100 kilowatts of free basic electricity to indigent customers. The issue in this municipality is high energy losses that impact the revenue of the municipality negatively. Municipality submitted a plan on how they intend to reduce them to NERSA's acceptable benchmarks, and we are recommending for approval on the submission of this tariff. Will limit any tariff that is above the benchmark to the higher level of the benchmark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khare. Members, any questions, issues of clarity on this tariff application? If not, may I request members that we move on to page 53, paragraph 10, on the recommendation, which are to approve the tariffs as recommended, which will be implemented on the 1st of July 2023, and that the municipality must monitor the performance of the energy losses in line with the set plan and submit quarterly progress report to NESA starting on the 30th of September 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the approval of the tariff application by Emma Lingen? Thank you, Mr. Kumeta. I do support. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. The tariff is approved. We then move on to the next one, and it's yours again, Mr. Khare.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Ndumini municipality is applying guideline increase on all their tariffs. Eskom provide 100 kilowatts of free basic electricity to municipal indigent customers. The issue here is losses that are above the benchmarks that impact the revenue of the municipality negatively. Municipality also submitted a report on how they intend to remedy the situation. Any tariff that is above the benchmark, we are going according to your guidance and limited by upper level. We are asking for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khare. Members, any questions? Mr. Mkhize, I see your hand is up, or is it for voting? That there is a total briefly coming.
Yeah, Chairperson, just a clarity thing. Mr. Khare just mentioned that Eskom provides 100 kilowatt hours to indigent customers. Yes, Eskom does that, but the municipality is responsible for 50 kilowatt hours. The rest will be coming from the approved FBE rate that we did. The other one will come from the municipal bottom line. So it must not be confused as though Eskom is giving 100 to this one, but not giving 100 to the others. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that clarity. Members, any other issue? There's nothing. I have read I haven't. The recommendations are on P63, 67, and it's recommended that the REC approve the tariffs as presented or as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must utilize its budget on implementing corrective measures and submit progress report on how it intends to curb its energy losses by starting on the 30th of September 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I do support Mr. Gumede. Thank you, sir. Thank you. The application is approved. Again, the next one is yours, Ntate Khare. It's Mandeni. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mandeni municipality is applying guideline increase on all their tariffs. The municipality provide 50 kilowatts to registered indigent customers. The issue here is low surplus level as a result of customers giving municipality challenges in terms of paying. And the losses are within the benchmark. This is mainly because a municipality is having one customer that is supplied at a high voltage, and this customer consume a lot of power from municipality and supply at a high voltage. So hence the losses are at that much. We are recommending for approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or issues of clarity or points of enhancements for Mr. Khare? I don't see any hand. On that note, may I request that we move on to page 80, where we have the recommendations under paragraph 10, which are to approve the tariff as recommended for implementation by 1 July 2023. By show of hand, members, can we get an indication that you please support the tariff? Thank you, Mr. Gumede. I support. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Tate Khare, thank you very much. We then move on to the next application, which is Mbofana in KZN. Ms. Mapitseng.
Good morning,
Apologies.
Chairperson. No, it's okay. Tal Maria Road. Good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. Bafana municipalities are applying for guideline increase. Chairperson, I just want to highlight that this Munich is under administration. The electricity business within this Munich is not satisfactory, as cited by the deficit and the high energy loss, Chairperson. And the report was submitted and assessed. The tariffs are fine, Chairperson. I therefore recommend for approval, which is on page 90.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mkiza, I see your hand is up. Do you want to raise an issue in relation to this application?
Yeah, I just want to raise an issue, but it also relates to others because I've been, although no material disagreement with what is put forth, but I just want to understand something here. Because we've got a local municipality sitting under a district municipality. Does it mean that those municipalities that are in the same district, are they above benchmark or what? Because I don't see them. I thought we would have municipality under a district, and then some of the initiatives that are done by a local municipality, one will look at maybe a possibility of replication to other local municipalities within a district to start off with. Maybe I'm taking an example of that basic free electricity being 100, and then 100, and then you've got 50 from what the municipality comes up with, and 50 what then comes through our the free basic energy policy. So I'm not so clear what is happening with others that are in the same. Like I look at Ilembe and Mandeni, there are others that are definitely under Ilembe. Just wanted to understand.
Thank you. Ms. Mapitsang, you may respond.
Okay, Chairperson. I see Mr. Sichotla want to assist there.
No, I think you can go on, but I think it's a general question that does not apply to this particular municipality. It applies across the country. Chairperson, I don't think there is any standard way that they're doing it. You may find in a particular district that the municipalities within that district, they are doing things in accordance to the district agreements. However, others will be doing them in accordance to their own council agreements. So it's not an easy question to answer at this moment, Babu Mkize, but maybe we can provide some feedback later. But if Ms. Mapitsang has got a response on this particular one, she can provide that. I just wanted to give a broader one. Thank you.
Thank you. You may come
Thank
in.
you, Mr. Sichotla. I don't have a further. I think I agree with what we said. Thank you.
I think then, Chairperson, is going to be important for the team to also look at the unit of command in dealing with matters, because the district municipalities have got a certain role to play, and then you've got the local municipalities, and it is important that that line of command is also observed, because some of the issues actually they just talk to the leadership aspect at the municipal level, and therefore when we're looking at that, it must reinforce that need for improved leadership at that level. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairperson will do that, but I think maybe let's also note what Mr. Gumede said in the last meeting, that as we're sitting now, we are talking in terms of guideline and benchmarks. However, in going into the next cycle, we'll be using a different methodology. So these issues may die, but we'll provide the report just for the record for members to note it. But I don't think going forward this will be an issue. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That's noted. Mr. Mkize?
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to drag this meeting. All I'm saying is that this, for me, this will apply irrespective of what method we're using, because you need to have that unit of command when one looks at district, then local level, in terms of how we deal with things. In the same vein, then one would approach things from national to provincial. But I'm saying that with due regard of this method having its last lap now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think Mr. Sechotlo, what Mr. Mkize is saying, that we need to note that particular issue even when we are finalizing our new methodology that will be coming, that we do it such that the issue is addressed. Thank you very much, Mr. Mkize. Members' recommendations are on P90 and paragraph 9, and the recommendation is that the REC approves the tariffs as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must monitor its energy losses in line with the set plan and submit to NESA quarterly progress report starting on the 30th of September 2023, and that the municipality must implement efficient credit control measures in order to improve its debt collection rate. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendation as presented? Thank you, Mr. Gumete. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. And I also support. We will then move on to the next application. It's yours again, Ms. Mapitseng. And
Thank
it's the Nkandla one. Thank you.
It's not Mutonjaneni.
Yes, it is. Apologies. I've jumped that one. You may proceed with Mtonjaneni.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Mtonjaneni municipality is applying for guideline also. The electricity business within the municipality is satisfactory. Tariffs are fine, Chairperson. Recommendation is on page 102. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions, issues of clarity or points of enhancements? If there are none, may we then move on to page 102, paragraph 9, which is that the REC must approve the tariffs as recommended and for implementation on 1 July 2023. By show of hand, members, I do support the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Thank you, Mr. Gumete. We then proceed to the one that I mentioned earlier. Over to you, Ms. Mapitseng.
Thank you, Chairperson. Nkandla municipality is applying for guideline increase. The financial and technical performance of the electricity department within the municipality, it's not satisfactory. However, Chairperson, we see some improvement on the deficit and the energy losses. Chairperson, the tariffs are fine. I recommend that the tariff be approved. On the recommendation is on page 112. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, questions, issues of clarity or points of enhancements? If there are none, may we then proceed to page 112, paragraph 9. The recommendation are we approve the tariffs as recommended, and these tariffs are to be implemented on 1 July 2023, and also that the municipality must monitor the performance of energy losses in line with the set plan and submit to NESA quarterly progress report starting on the 30th of September 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the tariff as presented? Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Thank you, Mr. Gumete. I do support as well. We'll move on to the next one. It's yours again, Ms. Mapitseng.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ngutu municipality, it's Ngutu. Ngutu municipality is applying for guideline increase. The financial and technical performance of the electricity business within the municipality is not satisfactory. However, also we see some improvement on the deficit and energy losses. The tariff are fine, Chairperson. I therefore recommend for approval, which is on page 124. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Members, any questions, issues of clarity or points of enhancements? If there are none, may we move on to page 124, paragraph 9, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended and that the tariffs are to be implemented on July 2023, And secondly, that the municipality must monitor the performance of its energy losses in line with the set plan and submit quarterly reports to NESA starting on the 30th of September 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the application? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Gumede. I do support. We move on to the next application, which is for Mr. Hare Umlalazi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Umlalazi municipality is applying guideline increase on all their tariff except domestic law, which is increasing by 5.3. The municipality indicated that a reason for such a low increase is because they are trying to protect the poor of the poorest. And the challenge here is losses that are above the benchmark. And municipality submitted a report on how they are busy dealing with these losses. And they are also providing a FBE to indigent customers. We are asking for approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hare. Members, any questions, points of enhancements or of clarity? If there are none, may I request that we go to recommendations, which are on P138, paragraph 8, and the recommendation that the REC approves the tariffs as recommended, and the implementation thereof will be on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must increase its expenditure and R&M to at least 6% of revenue from sale of electricity, and municipality must reduce its losses to be within NESA's acceptable benchmarks. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the application? Thank you, Mr. Gumede. I do support. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. The tariff application is approved in Dr. Hare. We then proceed to the next one, which is Umgeni. Ms. Mapiting.
Thank you, Chairperson. Umgeni municipality is applying for guideline increase. The financial performance of the electricity department within the Munich is satisfactory. However, Chairperson, the issue here is the financial performances. This is as a result of the tariff the municipality is buying electricity on, which is expensive. It's a NiSave tariff, NiSave rural tariff compared to the Mecca flex. Chairperson, the tariff are fine. Recommendation is on page 152. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Mr. Mkhize's hand. Oh, it's gone. Okay. Are there any questions or issues of clarity, members, on the application by Umgeni? If there's none, may I request we proceed to recommendations, which are on page 152, paragraph 9, which is that the tariff be approved as recommended, and they are for implementation on 1 July 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the approval of the application? Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Mr. Mkhize, and I do support. We move on to the next one, which is Umuzi Wabantu. Ms. Matlaku.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chair and members and colleagues. Umuzi Wabantu is applying for a guideline increase of 15.1%. In terms of the financial and technical indicators, the municipality is experiencing a positive surplus level, and energy losses are at acceptable levels of 3.29%. With regard to tariffs, all the tariffs as applied for by the municipality fall within the approved benchmark levels, and we therefore recommend for approval of tariffs as applied for by the municipality and as listed under section 7 of the analysis document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Matlaku. Members, any questions or issues of clarity? I don't see any hand, and I then request that we go to page 162, paragraph 9. The recommendation are that the REC approves the tariffs as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the approval of this tariff? Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Also support. We then move on to the next application, which is from Vote. Ntate Fare.
Thank you, Chairperson. Umvoti municipality is applying guideline increase on all their tariffs. Municipality provide free basic electricity to registered indigent customers. The issue here is losses that are above NERSA's benchmark that impact the revenue of the municipality negatively. They have submitted a report on how they are addressing the situation, and we are asking for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Members, questions, issues of clarity, points of enhancement? I don't see any hand. On that note, may I request that we go to page 175 for recommendations, which are on paragraph 10. The recommendations are that the REC approves the tariffs as recommended, and these are to be implemented on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must monitor the performance of energy losses in line with the set plan and submit quarterly progress report to NERSA starting on the 30th of September 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendation? Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I also support. We would then move on to the next applications, which are from Limpopo province. We'll start with Blowback. Date Modise, you may proceed with Blowback municipality.
Good morning, Chairperson, board members, management, and NERSA colleagues. When it comes to Blowback, we have performed financial and technical performance analysis, and we discovered that the customer profile is impacting the performance of the municipality, as it allows minimal, no cross-subsidization at all. But when we go to tariffs, there are no issues, as all the rates are increasing by a guideline increase of 15.1, and the recommendation are on page 183. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Modise. Members, questions, issues of clarity or points of enhancements? I don't see any hand. May I then request that we move on to the page with recommendations, which is 183, paragraph 9, and the recommendation are that the REC is requested to approve the tariffs as recommended, and as well as the implementation date, which is 1 July 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the recommended tariff application for Blowback? Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. I also support. We then move on to the next one, which is Greater Tzaneen. Ms. Nkopo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and good morning, colleagues. Greater Tzaneen has got an improved financial and technical sustainability, and the tariffs are all within the benchmarks except for the domestic first block tariff, which will be aligned to the higher band of the benchmark. And the recommendations are on page 198. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Nkopo. Members, any questions or issues of clarity on this application? If there's none, may I request that we move to page 198, paragraph 9, on the recommendations, which are that the REC must approve the tariffs as recommended, and that the tariff are to be implemented on 1 July 2023, that the municipality must submit to NERSA as smart energy losses report on a quarterly basis, commencing on the 30th of September 2023, in order to enable NERSA to closely monitor the energy losses. And lastly, that the municipality must devise a payment plan that will reduce its ESCOM debt and improve its credit control measures to the non-paying customers. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendations? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I do support, and thank you, Mr. Gumede. The application is...
Thanks, Chairperson. I'd also raised my hand earlier on that blowback application. If we just make sure that in terms of the decimal places, we use a comma or a full stop consistently, because it can also be confusing to the reader. Just consistency around that. Thank you. But I do support.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Tate Sichotlo, please note that an editorial requested. Thank you. We then move on to the next one, which is Lepalale. Ndate Modise, it's yours again.
Thank you, Chairperson, once again. The issue on Lepalale is a low profitability and the energy losses that are above the benchmarks. The municipality submitted an energy loss reduction plan and it was assessed and found to be acceptable. When moving on to the tariffs, there are no issues as 15.1% across the board increases proposed. We therefore recommend approval. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Modise. Members, questions or issues of clarity on this application? If there are none, may I request members that we move on to recommendations, which are on page 207, paragraph 10. And the recommendation are that the tariff as recommended be approved, and that the implementation date thereof as well be on 1 July 2023. And that the municipality is requested to submit a smart energy capping report on a quarterly basis and starting on the 30th of September. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendations? Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I do support as well. And we move on to the next application. The next applications are from Mpumalanga Province. We will start with Chief Albert Lutuli. Ms. Nkopo.
Thank you, Chairperson. The financial indicators and the technical indicators are not looking good for this municipality. The municipality has submitted a report on how the energy losses will be reduced, and this will be monitored. The tariffs are increasing by the guideline, and those that are outside the benchmarks will be reduced to the upper band of the benchmarks. The recommendations are on page 224, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions, issues of clarity or points of enhancement? I don't see any hand. May I then request that we move on to page 224, paragraph 9. The recommendation are that the tariffs be approved as recommended in the tariff analysis for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that, I see hands, members are supportive of the application, but may I be allowed to read in the recommendation into the record? The second one is that the municipality submit a smart energy losses report on a quarterly basis starting on the 30th of September in order to enable NESA to monitor the energy losses, and that the municipality will be required to honor Eskom's account to avoid paying interest on the outstanding debt. And lastly, that the municipality apply for a higher NMD to minimize payment for exceedance of the NMD. I think the application is supported by members. I had to read the recommendation into the record. I think we'll then move on to the next one. I see Mr. Mkhize's hand is up. Mr. Mkhize.
Thanks. I was just checking on 2.2 in terms of the surplus. It's extremely high, this deficit here. And the reasons given is that the increase in contracted services. I don't understand. Maybe you can clarify for me, please.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Nkopo. page 216. I think it's 212.
Thank you, Chairperson. One of the reasons is the contracted services, in the sense that the municipality has got a infrastructure that is very bad. As a result, they've hired consultants to assist with the refurbishment of its infrastructure. Also, it's also the interest paid on the ESCOM account and the NMD that they are paying to ESCOM for the exceedance of the NMD. That's why now we see such a high deficit. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Mr. Mkiza, are you comfortable with the response?
I'm comfortable. It's just that this is in the ICU. This one. Okay, it's fine.
Okay. Maybe then the emphasis, Ms. Nkopo, is that be monitored going forward in terms of its impact to the municipality. We'll move on. Oh, that is short.
Let's leave it, Chairperson. We'll put it in that RCU report, ICU.
ICU list, yes. Okay.
Yes.
We'll move on to Emma Kazeni, Ms. Nkopo.
Thank you, Chairperson. With Emma Kazeni, we've seen an improvement on the financial sustainability of the municipality. However, the technical sustainability is not looking well, and the tariffs are increasing by the guideline, and those that are above the benchmarks will be reduced to the benchmarks. The recommendations are on page 243, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, questions, issues of clarity? See any hand? May we then move on to 243 under 9. The recommendation are we approve the tariffs as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023, that the municipality submit a smart energy losses report on a quarterly basis starting on 30 September 2023 in order to enable NERSA to monitor the energy losses, and that the municipality must pay ESCOM's bulk account on time to avoid interest on its outstanding account. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the application from Emma Kazeni? Thank you, Mr. Mkiza, Mr. Gumete. I support. We move on to the next one, which is yours again, Ms. Nkopo. That is Legua Municipality.
Thank you, Chairperson. With Ligwa, the financial and technical sustainability of the municipality is also not looking good because of the interest that the municipality is paying to ESCOM and also the high energy losses. However, the tariffs are increasing by the guideline, and the tariffs that are above the benchmarks will be limited to the benchmarks. And the recommendation, Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, questions, issues of clarity on Ligwa's application? I don't see any hand. May I request that we move to page 258, paragraph 9, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must develop a revenue enhancement plan. And lastly, that the municipality must submit a smart energy loss report on a quarterly basis starting 30th September 2023 in order to enable NERSA to monitor the energy losses. And by show of hand, members, can I get an indication of support? Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I do support. We then move on to the last one under the province of Mpumalanga. Ms. Nkopo, again, Steve Chwete.
Thank you, Chairperson. With Steve Chwete, we've seen an improvement on the financial and technical sustainability of the municipality. However, the municipality has a low domestic customer base, whereby most of the customers are consuming on the first 2 block tariffs, such that the consumption of such customers is around 63%. Chairperson, for this municipality, the first 2 blocks are normally above the benchmarks, and they will be reduced to the higher band of the benchmarks. and the recommendations are on page 272. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Nkopo. Members, questions, issues of clarity, or points of enhancement? If there's none, may I request that we move on to page 272, paragraph 9, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended in the tariff analysis sections, and that the implementation is on the 1st of July 2023, and that the municipality needs to ensure that it develops a revenue enhancement plan. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Also support the application. We move on to the Eastern Province, and we will start with Elundini. Ms. Matlo.
Okay, good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. Elundini municipality is applying for an increase that is within the guideline. The financial and technical performance are not satisfactory, and the municipality has submitted a plan on how they will deal with the high energy losses and the percentage deficit. And the report was assessed and it will be monitored. And the recommendation is on page 286. Thanks.
Thank you, members. Any questions or issues of clarity on Elundini's application? I don't see any hand. May I request that we move on to page 286, paragraph 9, and on the recommendation, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended, and it is for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must monitor plans. The municipality must monitor plans executed to reduce its energy losses and submit progress report to NESA on a quarterly basis starting on September 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the recommendations? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Gumede. I do support. We move on to the next application, which is Emalahleni. Ms. Liburu.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and good morning, colleagues. Emalahleni, Eastern Cape municipality is applying for 15.1%. The municipality is operating at a surplus, and however, the energy losses are high above the benchmarks, and the municipality has provided the report, which states how the issues will be addressed and it will be monitored going forward. This is one of those municipalities that are buying at an expensive tariff, Night Safe Rural from Eskom. The guidance from members has been noted, and it is recommended that the tariffs be approved as applied for on page 296 recommendations. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Liburu. Members, questions or issues of clarity? I don't see any hand. May I request we move on to page 296, paragraph 9, and on the recommendation, which are to approve the tariffs as recommended for implementation by the municipality on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality is required to continue to monitor the plans undertaken to reduce energy losses and submit a progress report to NESA on a quarterly basis starting on 30 September 2023, and that the municipality is required to improve its debt collection rate to align it to NESA's required levels. Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I also support. We then move on to the next application, which is King Sabata. Ms. Liburu, that's yours as well.
Thank you, Chairperson. King Sabata municipality is also applying for 15.1%. The municipality is doing well, both financially and technically. The tariffs are within the benchmarks. I therefore recommend for approval. Recommendations are on page 304. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liburu. Members, questions or issues of clarity? I don't see any hand. The recommendation on paragraph 9 on page 304, which are to approve the tariffs as recommended for implementation by 1 July 2023, that the municipality is required to manage its inefficiencies by addressing high expenditure on electricity account in order to enhance the surplus level in an effort to sustain its financial health. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendations that are on 304? Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I also support. We then move on to the next one, which is Gogama. Ms. Matlo.
Okay, Kokama municipality is applying for an increase that is within the guideline. The municipality is only servicing 30% of the community. The rest
Sorry, Ms.
is...
Matlo, sorry to interrupt you. I saw Mr. Kumete's hand was up. Was it a lingering hand? So it's gone. Yeah, I think you may proceed then.
Okay. Kokama municipality is applying for an increase that is within the guideline. The municipality is only servicing 30% of the community. The rest is applied by ESCOM. And then the first two blocks are increasing by the guideline. It's only the third block that is above, and it will be limited. And this is the municipality that is buying with the night safe. And the recommendation is on page 313. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, questions, issues of clarity, or points of enhancements? If there are none, may I request we move on to page 313, paragraph 9, which is to approve the tariff as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023, that the municipality must submit an energy loss report in order to enable NERSA to closely monitor the losses starting on the 30th of September 2023, and that the municipality must submit a report on how they plan to improve on their percentage deficit. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendations? Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. I also support. We move on to the next application, which is Matatiela Ntatehare.
Good morning, Chairperson. Thank you. Matatiela municipality is applying a 15.1 guideline increase on all their tariffs. The municipality is operating at a reasonable surplus and losses that are within the benchmark. The municipality provides free basic electricity to registered indigent customers. We are asking for approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ntatehare. Members, questions, issues of clarity? If there are none, may I request that we move on to page 326, paragraph 10, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the recommendations? Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I also support. We move on to the next application, which is from Sengu. Ms. Matlo.
Thanks, Chairperson. Sengu municipality is applying for an increase that is within the guideline. The financial and technical performance are not satisfactory. The municipality has submitted a report on how they will deal with the energy losses and percentage deficit. The report was assessed and it will be monitored. Tariffs are increasing within the guideline, and they are all within the benchmarks. And the recommendation is on page 340. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Matlu. Members, questions, issues of clarity? If there are none, may I request we move on to page 340, paragraph 10, which are to approve the tariffs as recommended in the analysis for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must monitor the performance of energy losses in line with the set plan until they are in line with NERSA's benchmarks. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the application? Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. We then move on to the next one, which is Sunday River. Ms. Matlo, this one is yours as well.
Sunday's River is applying for an increase that is within the guideline. The financial and technical performance are not satisfactory due to high energy losses, and the municipality has submitted a report on how they will deal with the energy losses. All tariffs are increasing by the guideline and within the benchmarks. The recommendation is on page 351. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, questions, issues of clarity on this application? If not, page 351, recommendations are on paragraph 9, and the recommendation are that the tariffs be approved as recommended in the analysis for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must address the high level of energy losses and bring them in line with NESA benchmark. By show of hand, members, can I get any indication that you support the recommendations on this particular application? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I do support. I don't see Mr. Komete. Oh, thank you, Mr. Komete. The application is approved. We move on to another application that was not grouped with the others from KZN, which is Ulundi. Ms. Mapitsen.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ulundi municipality is applying for guideline increase. The financial and technical performances of the electricity department within the Munich is not satisfactory. However, Chairperson, we see some improvement on the energy losses. The tariff are fine, Chairperson. I therefore recommend approval, which is on page 364. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions or issues of clarity in relation to this application? If not, recommendations on 364, paragraph 9, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must monitor its energy losses in line with the set plan and submit to NESA progress report on a quarterly basis, starting on the 30th of September 2023, and that the municipality must implement efficient credit control measures to improve its debt collection. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support? I do support. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Komete. The application is approved as recommended. We then move on to the Northern Cape, starting with David Graper. Ms. Khwadi. If Ms. Khwadi is not connected, we'll get back to that one. Can we then go to Hentem? Ms. Botha, please proceed with the application.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, members and colleagues. I'm presenting to you Hentem Municipality. They are applying for an increase of 10% overall. All their block tariffs are within the benchmarks. Their financial and technical performance is satisfactory, and therefore we seek approval for this application. Thank you, Chairperson.
Pardon, I was talking to a muted mic. Thank you, Ms. Botha. Members, are there any questions or issues of clarity in relation to this particular application? If not, may I then request that we go on to the recommendations, and the recommendations are on I'm just trying to get there because the other one. The recommendations are on P381, paragraph 8, and the recommendation are that the tariffs be approved as recommended for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must apply cost containment measures in an effort to reduce its expenditure, and that the municipality ought to continue maintaining its energy losses level closely, and also to make them be within the acceptable range between 5 to 12% as recommended in terms of the NESA benchmarks. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendations? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Also support. We can move on to David Graper. Is Ms. Khwadi is back or is connected?
I'm back. Apologies, I got kicked out of the meeting. Okay, David Kruger is applying for 15.10%, which is within the guideline. And then when it comes to their financial indicators, the municipality is doing well, except that the energy losses has increased drastically, and it is the first time in over 5 years that their energy losses are above the benchmark. So I spoke to the municipality and they've indicated that maybe there are some errors on the G-forms. Their energy losses are still within the benchmark. So I'm still waiting for them to send the information. Failure for them to send that information, then I'll have to add the recommendation that they need to send the energy loss report that indicating how are they going to deal with the high energy losses. When it comes to their tariffs, all tariffs are within the benchmarks except for the two, which is commercial conventional 45 kVA and 70 kVA, and they are all the increase have been reduced to 12.2 and the 11.2 to align the tariffs to the benchmarks. So I recommend for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khwadi. Members, any questions or issues of clarity? If none, and the recommendation are on P373, paragraph 9, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended on the analysis sheet for implementation on 1 July 2023. And also this approval is also subject to the energy losses information being provided by the MUNIX. And as indicated by Mr. Khwadi, if it's not within the acceptable level, they will ask the municipality to indicate how they are going to be addressing them. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you do support the application subject to that information or correction of the information provided under energy losses in the D-forms? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I also support the application. Thank you, Mr. Khwadi. We'll move on to the next one, which is Siatemba. It's by Ms. Mukhadima.
Thank you, Chair. Siatemba is applying for guideline increase of 15.10 and all tariffs are within benchmark except for domestic and will be limited to upper benchmark. In terms of financial and technical, municipality is not satisfactory. However, there is improvement in the energy loss. The municipality has submitted the energy loss report and it was assessed and will be monitored going forward. We therefore recommend for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Mukhadima. Members, any questions or issues of clarification on this particular application? If there's none, may I request that we move on to page 391, paragraph 8, and the recommendations are that the tariffs be approved as recommended in the tariff analysis sheet for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality must monitor the performance of its energy losses in line with the set plan until they are within the NESA's benchmarks. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendation on Siatemba? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I do support. We then proceed to the next one, which is Ubuntu. Ms. Matlaku.
Thank you, Chair. Ubuntu is applying for a guideline increase of 15.1%. Municipality is operating under high deficit levels and high energy losses. The municipality did submit a report on measures that they've put in place to address the high level of losses, as well as to reduce the amount owing to Eskom. The report was assessed and we will continue to monitor it. All the tariffs that are applied for are all within the approved benchmarks, and we therefore recommend for approval as applied for by the municipality. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Matlaku. Members, any questions, issues of clarity? If there's none, may I request that we go to page 401 in paragraph 9, which is the recommendations, and the recommendations are that the tariffs be approved as recommended above for implementation of 1 July 2023, and that the municipality is required to implement the losses reduction plan they have submitted to NERSA, and to provide NERSA with an update report elaborating on the progress made on a quarterly basis starting on the 30th of September 2023. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the recommendation on this application? Thank you, Mr. Mchize. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I also support. And we then move on to our last tariff application, which is Overstrand in the Western Cape. Mr. Matumbo?
Thank you, Chair.
Apologies. Sorry, Kulana, I always mix up. Apologies for that, Ms. Matumbo. Yes.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. Overstrand as electricity business is slightly doing bad in terms of the percentage supplies. It is slightly below the NERSA benchmarks, and this needs to be monitored going forward. The energy losses are within the NERSA benchmarks. The municipality is applying in line with the guideline. All the tariffs are within or below the NERSA benchmarks, and we therefore recommend for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or issues of clarity in relation to this application? I don't see any hand from members. We then have, or may I request members, we move on to page 417, paragraph 8, which is to approve the tariffs as recommended in the tariff analysis, and it is for implementation on 1 July 2023, and that the municipality should monitor their percentage supplies and improve it so it can be within NERSA benchmarks. By a show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the application? Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Thank you, Mr. Mchize. I also support. I think we have come to the end of item 5, which was approval of the 2024-25 tariff application from tariff applications from municipalities. We will then move on to item 6 under petroleum pipeline. Ms. Boko, I don't know who is representing. Oh, it's Mr. Sintimunye. It's the RRS report. Mr. Sintimunye.
Good morning, REC members and colleagues. As you are aware that the EM is not available as indicated, and Ms. Boko was supposed to represent, but she had technical issues. Then I'll be presenting here Transnet National Port Authority Regulatory Reporting Manuals Implementation Plan submitted in compliance with the requirements of the Regulatory Reporting Manuals. The purpose of this submission is to request the Regulator Executive Committee to approve the TNP Implementation Plan submitted in compliance with the requirements of the RRMs. TNP submitted its IP on 24 May 2023 as part of Phase 2 licensing in compliance of the RRM. The IP submitted by TNP was evaluated by the RRM specialists with the support of the RRM task team. The submission is linked to Program 1C on regulatory service delivery that ensures that all licensees in the 3 regulated industry fully comply with the licensing condition. RRMs assist with the extrapolation of audited information, which ensures that only actual regulated information for license activity is reported. The information in RRM is also interlinked to the work done on prudency with regards to verification of codes. It is recommended that the REC approve the TNP IP submitted in compliance with the RRMs. Thank you, RC members.
Thank you, Mr. Sintumule. Members, any questions or issues of clarity on the submission? I do not see any hand from members. May I request members that we move on to paragraph 14. There's a minor numbering error there, Mr. Sintumule. It should be 14.1 or just 14. The recommendations are on P4, and the recommendation are that the REC approves the TNPA's IP submitted in compliance with the RRMs. By show of hand, members, can I get an indication that you support the application? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I do support, and thank you, Mr. Gumede. We have come to the end of the open session of our REC meeting of 19 July. May I take this opportunity to thank everyone else who have attended the meeting, particularly our stakeholders or interested and affected persons. On that note, may I then request that we close the session for this open session for this meeting and move on to our closed session. Thanks everyone for your attendance and contribution. Ndate Mateja, please let me know once